Welcome to Expat Hoops. This time we have Brittany Smart on, who went from the NAIA Division II Player of the Year in 2007 to an illustrious career overseas. She spent time in Belgium and Sweden before coming to Australia in 2015. That's where she joins us from today. So without further ado, Brittany, thanks for coming on to Expat Hoops to tell your story, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So as I said off the top, you were the NAIA Division II Player of the Year in 2007. List of accomplishments is pretty long. Cedarville University in Ohio, close by to where you grew up. All-time leading scorer, Division II Player of the Year. All-time NAIA Division II player leading scorer with like 3,236 points. Can you talk a little bit why your decision was to stay closer to home, and if you had any other opportunities at that point in time to play in college?
Both my parents went there. My grandpa was a dean there, and I had other relatives go there. So it just kind of made sense. But I did like the coach at that time as well. And I was really wanting to go to a place that had a good culture. It was kind of a small school, so I was a little bit hesitant. But at the same time, when you go to a small school, your game can become very versatile and you're not just kind of put in a box right away. And I still wanted to grow and be just a hybrid type player and, be able to focus on all skills. So with that opportunity, and because it was a small school, I knew that we could probably, even though it's NAIA, still make the tournament and fight for a championship or fight to finish your season on a win, which doesn't happen as often when you're in the NCAA. So those are the various reasons of why I decided to go there. I actually I had a couple other interests, not full offers, because I actually signed before my senior year even started. And that was probably my biggest year as well. And obviously going to a small high school and being, kind of like a small town girl, those offers probably would have come in more during my senior year, but none earlier anyways, just because you always have to kind of work double as hard to get your name out there if you're not going to a bigger school. So that's how I ended up at Cedarville.
So at what point in your life, this is always the question that we struggle with, exactly how to phrase it. Pretty much everybody that we talk to wants to play professionally at some point in time, but what point did it become tangible for you where you said, all right, I'm actually going to be doing this, not just like a dream to play professional, but when you're saying, all right, whether it's the WNBA or playing overseas, when did that actually start becoming like a process for you?
Not till after my senior year of college. Like, I just didn't know, because I was such a small girl in a small town school. I was part of a group that was going to get invited to some WNBA tryouts, but then I didn't make the last 40 to even get there, just because, there's a lot of unknowns about me. And so I ended up having to pay my way to go to a pro tryout in Boston, Massachusetts. And I had no idea how that was going to go. But I always just stayed prepared. I didn't know for sure if I wanted to play, but I just knew that, I always wanted to stay ready. Because if the opportunity came, I at least wanted to know that I tried and I did it and gave it a go and not regret at least not trying. So I always stay prepared. But yeah, I paid my own way to go to Boston, Massachusetts, but ended up getting MVP and signing with that agency. And then that landed my first gig over in Belgium.
That was exactly where I was going next. So actually, if you could kind of talk to me a little bit more about that. We've talked to some people that, depending on when they got started, they either didn't have to do that, where, whether it's pay their own way, whether they got invited to, on the male side, it's supports with invitational tournament, things like that. So there's a lot of different ways that people got started, including some people even just, emailing teams, believe it or not. But with that, we've definitely heard about some of these showcase events and things like that, and how you had to pay your own way. Can you kind of talk a little bit more about that? And I know from your bio that it comes up that you had like 10 offers. So what were some of the offers that you also had, and wading through that and deciding where you were going to go for the first place too?
I honestly let my agent kind of, they told me like some offers, and then they kind of gave me like maybe the top two. And I honestly, that's like 14 years ago. I can't remember what all of my other offers were, coming right out of college. But I trusted my agent to, put me in a place, first of all, that I could succeed. And play well, get lots of minutes, obviously make some income and stuff. And, Belgium has some good basketball. So I think it was at least a good start in a smaller country. And, just the process of getting there is just a lot of hard work, because, if you're a shorter, smaller player going to a small school, you may not even look the part. So, you're not even getting looked at. So you have to make a first impression right away. That's super important. So I don't even know of any other NAIA players, women that are playing professionally and for this long, and at this high of a level. Usually all of them have gone D1. I can't even think of anyone that I'm sure there are, but maybe they're playing, in the second or third level of the country, which is fine, but to play at the top level in each country you've played at, and then especially Australia with how good their basketball is here. So, that's just me really just being persistent and just continually to always be ready and train and to not give up. A lot of people peak really early, and I'm a late bloomer, I think, and I was just persistent with it, and different opportunities came my way.
Absolutely. And before you got to Australia, like we said, you started in Belgium. Had you ever been overseas before prior to signing your first deal?
Only in Central America, South America. We went on a few trips with our college basketball team and stuff. So we'd gone there and played some games and also helped out in the community and things like that. So I'd been away from home, but nothing too far because obviously college was closed. So that was definitely a big learning curve for me. And I think that's why I stayed with that team for 2 seasons. Just for that second season, I could have some consistency. I knew what I was getting into and just a little more comfortable, even off the court, with the lifestyle.
And what was kind of like your learning curve in Belgium? Like you said, you stayed there 2 years. So at some point you decided, all right, I'm comfortable enough here, I'm going to come back. But, how long did it kind of take you to get adapted to playing over there and kind of feeling like that's at least like a second home, at least for a little while?
Yeah, I think the second year was just totally different. It's kind of like, your freshman year is totally different than your sophomore year. It was a little bit like that. It's just kind of like a freshman, sophomore year, you come back, you're a bit more confident and a bit more comfortable. You knew the league better. You knew where you could dominate, where your strengths were. So you felt comfortable that you could kind of master that league and, have another challenge. And that's when I ended up going to Sweden, just to have a new challenge and to see how I could grow as a basketball player and help a different club. But the learning curve over there with Belgium, at least, was just like body language and learning how to be a good teammate without speaking, because, a lot of my teammates didn't speak or were nervous to speak English. So, learn to pay attention to detail, because a lot of our timeouts were in French. So paying attention to detail, body language is super important, learning how to be a good teammate with just your actions and facial expressions.
And so after your 2-year stint in Belgium, you go to Sweden for a number of years. Your first team, I believe, was 2010 to 2013. I can't even pronounce it, so I'm not even going to bother to try.
Carnby.
Okay. Actually, it's kind of interesting. You're the second player that we've had on, at least that I can think of, where the team has gone bankrupt. Yours, I don't think, was in the middle of a season, but what was that experience like in terms of the team going bankrupt and deciding to come back to Sweden to another team at that point in time in the 2013-2014 season?
Yeah, I mean, the transition wasn't too bad. I think I knew I was going to have move on to another challenge anyways. But I was just more sad that the team wasn't going to be there. I had a great support system there. They had re-signed me when my knee was hurt, and they knew that I would come back and provide leadership on and off the court. I became a strength and conditioning coach. That's when I started that kind of side job outside of basketball. Created a good family and friends there. So I was sad for that purpose, but I also knew that it was time to move on for basketball purposes anyways. And that's when I ended up way up north in Sweden, above the Arctic Circle with Luleå. And that was really cool and really good challenge, a really experienced squad. And then we were able to bring their first championship to them. And that was awesome, finishing on a high and a win. And they'd gotten second like 3 or 4 times. So it's cool to be a part of that. And that was just a different type of challenge. But yeah, so, the bankruptcy was unfortunate, but I think I was, ready for a new challenge anyways.
And actually brought it up, and coincidentally, there's one of our previous guests is currently Division I head coach. She actually was in Sweden and did sort of the player coach role. So, and I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit too, just clarifying, was that something that you were a player coach, or was it something that you also coached while in Sweden?
I coached strength conditioning stuff on the side with other athletes, not with my own team. Not that I'm against player coach, but I don't think that's not efficient and effective. It's just, at the highest level, I don't think you're getting the most out of your players when you are playing, because you're always, going to have that kind of like inner focus. Not that it can't be done, but it's just not for me. But yeah, so I was more coaching people on the side, strength and conditioning stuff. I worked at another gym just whenever I could, that didn't conflict with my professional basketball schedule.
Yeah, that makes sense. It could be a lot of work doing that, and comparing and contrasting you. I mean, you've had a number of years after the stint in Sweden with this person that was pretty much, I think, realizing that they were probably going to be going into coaching anyway. So it made more sense for them at that point in time to do the player coach thing than necessarily somebody that, like you, has continued on to Australia and a number of years after that as well. Which does lead us right to the next time. So at the end of 4 years in Sweden, after 2 years in Belgium, what brought you to Australia? And at that point in time, not in the WNBL, but in a different league that gets you over to Australia. What was that decision like? And was Australia the place that you wanted to be at that particular time, or was it something that you kind of fell into?
Yeah, I wanted to go to Australia. I'd been trying to kind of go there to play in the NBL 1, or the Cedarville League is what it was called then, which was the second league. I was going to do the second league during the off season of Europe. So I'd be playing year round, but just to be, challenge myself and have double income as well. And a lot of my friends had played in WNBL, and, there's a lot of crossover between WNBA and WNBL as well. So I knew it was a really high league. Even in the Olympics, usually they're always, on the podium with the United States. So I knew that was going to be a good challenge. So I just decided to move here because of basketball, and just see what happens. I was already 29, I believe, at that point. So I knew I could play in the second league, but I actually came over here without worrying about what team I was going to play or play with in the WNBL. It was just more of come start playing. Again, I don't have D1 or a big European country behind my name. So I just always know that I have that blue collar hard work style. I had to be in front of them anyways. So I just came over here and played in the second league and trained with the WNBL team, because I came a bit late for WNBL anyways. And then I just knew if I worked hard and played hard, I trusted my trainings and years of experience that I would get picked up eventually by a WNBL team if I wanted to play. And then I took that opportunity, and 7 years later, I'm still playing.
Yeah, started in Melbourne. You spent some time with Sydney from the 18 to 20 seasons, and now currently in Canberra. What has kind of been the differences between the three different teams that you've played for, other than, different cities and everything like that? But what's it been like over that 6-year period, roughly?
Yeah, it's a big learning curve. It's a high level here. So I really had to learn to step out of my comfort zone, see what the team needed. At first I was coming off the bench, but then I eventually got to move to a starting role. And that was just a good experience, and learning from, a lot of players here that played high levels in Europe and WNBA. So, I was there just to kind of fill in and fit the pieces. And that comes back to, my university being versatile, being able to go to any team and kind of just give what the team needs at that time. But the experience was great. I learned a lot. I learned the style. And each permanent resident, so I'll probably end up just staying here anyways. But so it's just been a really cool experience. I had a few rough years. Our team struggled the first few seasons, and then the third season with the Boomers, we went to the grand final of the championship series, and it's the first to three, and it was 1-1. We ended up losing that last game, so that was a bit of a bummer. But I also think that kept me driven to go and to Sydney and play. I played a pretty big role there that first year. Played lots of high minutes, and I'm already 32, 33. And so I ended up cleaning up my ankle in that second season. I was just kind of just in and out of the season a bit. And then the last 2 seasons with Canberra have been really good. We've been in the hub, so that was just a whole different experience for last season. And this season, we have a full season. Just played my first real home game for Canberra last night. And that was fun, just to be back with the home crowd and things like that. And yeah, my role has always been X factor shooter, giving energy. The older I get as well, just that veteran leadership. And that's my role now. And yeah, obviously still wanting to win a championship. And that does keep me driven, but it also keeps me driven. I have Be Smart basketball coaching business on the side, that's strength and conditioning, athletic coaching, along with basketball skill. And it's been kind of nice to see if my own program, how does that work for me or at elite levels, or do I feel different? So it's really been a learning process for both businesses as well.
One of the things I think that you kind of alluded to was your COVID story, really. Everybody's got one. You had been in this place for a number of years before. I think you made reference to the fact it was nice to see the fans back and everything like that. But what was your experience with COVID when everything was kind of shutting down, and just kind of how weird was that, even getting back to the point where you guys are at now?
Yeah. And I mean, for those who, pay attention internationally to COVID, Australia has been one of the most locked down countries in the world. So we've really been locked down, and especially our specific city, Melbourne, which is the southern part of Australia. We've been in, lockdowns and stage 4s for a long time. So before the hub season, there's about 5 months where I didn't get on an indoor court or into a gym or into any place to lift. So luckily I'm a trainer, so I had some equipment with me. But also I know how to use my body weight as well to maximize performance for basketball as well. But even just being on an indoor hoop, I couldn't, like I was on outdoors running on grass or running on, the street as much as I could without beating my body up as well. So that preparation was really tough. And then when I moved to Canberra for the hub season, I was the only one that had to quarantine because the rest of the country had kind of opened up except Melbourne. So I was the only one that really had to quarantine for like 2 weeks, coming to a new team, trying to find chemistry. And then we had a short hub season. It was only like 15, 16 games within a span of 6 to 7 weeks. So it was like all back to back and with one rest and one. So I was just chasing tail, trying to just help where I could. So that obviously was tough. And there was a team in that league that was a close contact to a COVID. So they had to go in isolation for 7 days and then had to make up the games. And even this year, we've had a situation where there's members of our clubs were close contacts, and we just actually came out of a 7-day isolation as well and had to, do Zoom sessions and online trainings with our team. We just got out 5 or 6 days ago. We had to cancel a game. But anyways, so it's still affecting us. We have a team it's an 8-team league, and one team right now actually can't even start their season yet until January because of their borders for their states. Yeah, so it's an interesting, so we've been affected a lot here, but I think people are adaptable. They're resilient if they want to be. So we just obtained that mindset as a Canberra Capital player and a club member.
Interesting. And so what are also the dynamics with your team now as a veteran? What's the composition like in terms of with you and the rest of the team? Is it something that, because you've been through a lot through a number of years as a professional, has it been something that essentially that you're sort of like one of the senior members of the team and that have kind of been able to get them through this essentially with adapting to new normals all the time?
Yeah, because, just being consistent with the schedule. So, like when we had our preseason and stuff, if we trained twice a day, it was a morning session, an evening session or whatever. So during COVID or during a break or during this last, 7-day isolation, we just stuck to a schedule and a routine. So we all got on with our strength and conditioning coach every morning at the same time that we would have if we were there in person. So if you have a schedule and a routine and a purpose and you do it with intent, obviously it's always better to train with the team, not dribble outside, all these things. But if you just keep a routine and eat well, and if you can keep those two things going, usually you bounce back fine and you still feel, like you're having just that schedule and that pattern, and creating efficient patterns for yourself. And then when we went back to, in-person trainings, it was just the same things, the same schedule. So we were able to do that and still see each other and interact on those 2 sessions daily as well. So you didn't feel like you were alone.
So one of the things that, we're talking about the unpredictability of everything in this era, but looking ahead in the next few years, what do you foresee or what do you have as goals in terms of your professional career, or what's next for you if you do decide to retire or basically not play at this high level anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. I always go year to year, and I've been saying that for the last 7 or 8 years. If I feel like I can still give something to a team and I'm still needed and efficient and on and off the court, even leadership and experience wise to help someone else grow, I will still play. If I can still, learn how the body moves and to maximize performance for basketballers and take that into coaching and being able to, help people, elite athletes, or just, it doesn't even matter, but anyone who wants to play and play with their kids, it's all the same stuff. So I'm just trying to help people play without pain, because I've played with pain. And this last few years has been a process. Is can I get myself out of pain, and then can I, maximize, my performance. So I really just go year to year. At some point, even if I retire, which is still quite high because there's quite a few WNBL players that still come down and play during the off season. So that still will be challenging in and of itself. I just won't have to travel quite as much, which would be nice.
Yeah.
But I never make decisions ahead of time. I really just go with certain opportunity. If it feels right, then I'll keep going.
That'll do it for this episode of Expat Hoops. We want to thank Brittany for sitting down with us. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button to help us out. If you're listening on an audio pod, this is a great reminder to subscribe to Expat Hoops on YouTube as well, since we have content you will not find anywhere else.